It is a few days before Christmas, a few hours before sunset in Anson, Texas. For so many years, we have heard the story surrounding this old building that is only open for 3 nights a year in honor of one particular Yuletide celebration, all the way back in 1885.
Back then, this was the frontier. This was the western frontier. The Texas cattle drives were still going on.
It's hard to believe this huge place was built for one weekend a year.
It was used 3 nights a year, and the rest of the time it was padlocked and closed.
When they unlocked the doors to this historic building each holiday season, John Compeer relives the legacy of his family's 7 generations.
Anson only had about 24 people living in the city in 1885, and there was one hotel. The owner of the hotel, he decided to have a grand Christmas ball that honored all the area cowboys and their ladies and their families. It was a family affair. They danced all night long, and it continued for several years thereafter until the Morning Star Hotel burned down.
And then when did it get picked up again?
Well, after the Morning Star Hotel burned down, they continued it. A couple of ranches had it, and that didn't turn out too well, so they did it at the high school gymnasium. It outgrew the gymnasium, and so they decided we've got to have a place for this because people were coming in not only from West Texas, but from all over Texas and other states. Kelly, my great-grandfather, my namesake, I'm John Millsap Compeer, my great-grandfather came to the first ball with my grandmother.
Also at that first Cowboy's Christmas Ball was an unlikely character, Larry Chittenden. He was a poet and writer from New York City who just happened to own a cattle ranch outside Anson, and the wordsmith turned cowboy was so moved by the Christmas Ball that he composed a poem about the event, later published in his best-selling book, Ranch Verses.
Way out in western Texas, where the Clear Fork waters flow, where the cattle are a-browsing and the Spanish ponies grow, where the northers come a-whistling from beyond the neutral strip.
Hi, what are you doing?
Where the coyotes come a-howling round the ranches after dark, and the mockingbirds are singing to the lovely meadowlark. Welcome back again. It's good to see you. I'm John Compeer, the historian. Wonderful to have you back again. We get them from all over Texas and other states. We have the 1885 rules, we still have them, and we go by them. Gentlemen have to check in their hats at the door and their spurs, and ladies must wear dresses on the dance floor. The town was Anson City, old Jones County seat, where they raised polled Angus cattle and waving whiskered wheat. They had a grand march at the first ball, and we have the grand march each year, and it opens the ball. We still do it today.
But you couldn't build a building for something that happens one weekend a year, could you?
Well, they certainly did. They bought this lot. First ball was here in '38, and they built this building solely and exclusively for the Cowboy Christmas Ball 3 nights a week before Christmas. The rest of the year it was padlocked.
Three nights that celebrate a bitter cold evening more than a century ago. Our old friend Jody Nix brings life back to this stage built in 1938, and outside, a stranger to everyone here, leads his family into a night they will never forget.
We didn't even know it existed.
As it turns out, history was made the night we attended the Cowboy Christmas Ball.
And we'll tell you all about that coming up next.
The descendants of that fiddler who's mentioned in the poem have that fiddle.
That same one.
The exact same one, the fiddle that's over 100 years old. When Hunter Johnson and his family walked through the door with that fiddle case, that was a wonderful historical artifact. Nobody knew but the members of the association and Mr. Johnson and his family what that was.
Now he whittled these tuners. Those are hand whittled.
Really?
Yeah. The luthier wanted to replace them. These are all hand whittled.
Turn it around, too.
Where has that fiddle been for 136 years?
The vast majority of the time, it was in a little house on the M streets in Dallas, where Crosby Charlie's daughter lived. And then when I went to college, she gave it to me, and I've had it ever since in Dallas or in Frisco, Texas. In the poem, it mentions the viol came imported by stage from Abilene. This is that violin. This fiddle was played at the first Cowboy Christmas Ball by Crosby Charlie, whose wedding reception it was. Crosby Charlie is my great-grandfather. My grandmother, his daughter, gave this to me, and it's been in our family ever since. So this is our first time here, and we've never heard it played, so we'd like him to play it, if it's playable.
When it was announced and explained and Jody Nix took it out of the case, I'm sure he was amazed. He didn't know whether it was going to fall apart or how it was going to play or what, and he had to look at it and tune it very carefully before he attempted to play it.
It was played at the very first Cowboy Christmas Ball.
Everybody stopped what they were doing. They all stopped and gathered around. We didn't even know it existed. To have that old fiddle that played at the first ball here to play 136 years later, it was fantastic. Everybody in here was a witness to history like never before. When I realized that my great-grandfather and great-grandmother danced to that fiddle, I'm almost breaking up now. I really am. To think about that, look, I'm about to break up now, Bob. That's how it hit almost everybody here that knows about the ball. I thought about my great-grandparents and them going to the first ball, and I wish they could be here to hear that. We couldn't believe it. It was a magnificent historical event. My heart was at that first ball, and my mind and my imagination when they played that fiddle. It was a remarkable experience. I could shut my eyes and actually be at that first ball. Bob Wills' Faded Love is one of mine and my wife's favorite songs. But it never sounded so good as when Jody Nix played it on that old fiddle that played at the first ball.
Thank you.
We have no idea why Mr. Johnson picked this particular year. It had always been on his mind, and he finally decided to do it and bring his family. So what a wonderful blessing for us and his family.
Thank you, friends. That means a lot to that family. They're going to retire it, and it'll never be played again.
This is the way Texas should be forever. It's the way it was then, and it's the way it should be now. This was the edge of civilization back then, and the families stayed on their ranches and didn't come into town during the harsh winters. And this was a chance for them to come together and to celebrate Christmas.
Some historians say the cowboy poetry craze began here with a Yankee who attended the Cowboys' Christmas Ball. Michael Martin Murphey set the words to music a few decades ago, and he always performs on the first night of the celebration. President Roosevelt's Works Progress Administration program in the 1930s created this iconic mural, a copy of which is on permanent display at the Smithsonian. Why is this so important to keep this going, to keep it alive?
It's important because of our Western history and our heritage. To show how families gathered and celebrated Christmas and the holidays together, even during the hardest times on the frontier.
Tradition runs deep on the rolling plains of Texas. For those who make the Christmas journey each holiday season, it is a sense of renewed hope that the simple pleasures of a time long ago will live on forever.
We buckled to our partners and told them to hold on, then shook our hooves like lightning until the early dawn. Oh, Bill, I shan't forget you, and I'll oftentimes recall that lively gaited soiree, the Cowboy's Christmas Ball.
I love that story.
Me too, and we've got plenty more where that came from.
Just click on the subscribe button and keep traveling with us.